The last presentation of this session is from Dr. Wong. Jan is a long period collaborator with OAI and expert in ORAN testing. So he will present the ORAN test integration latest progress. Jan is currently the director of RF and wireless architecture reporting to the CTO at VIAVI solution, where he is leading RF and wireless technology strategy, architectures and standard. He is the co-chair of the test integration focus group in the ORAN Alliance and VIAVI representative as the full member and steering group of the Next G Alliance. So Jan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Adlan. Thanks everybody, especially to OAI, Raymond, Irfan for inviting me here. It's a privilege to celebrate the 10th year anniversary for OAI. And as Adlan mentioned, we're a proud supporter of a lot of open source projects, the OSC, you heard that from BMO, and of course OAI as well, where we recently became a strategic board member. So, you know, I have the privilege of standing between you and lunch, so I promise Irfan I'll keep my talk under 2 hours, okay? So, anyway, so I'm going to be talking today putting two hats on. I mean, obviously I have the VIAVI hat on because they pay my bills. But you know, my day job is actually with the ORAN Alliance as the chair of the test group there. So I'm going to talk about mostly ORAN, and then towards the end you'll hear a bit of pitch from a VIAVI standpoint, but I promise it won't be that long. So I want to start with, again, speaking on behalf of ORAN, right? I mean, you saw a bit from BMO. You know, there's really three main thrusts in ORAN, which makes ORAN kind of a very unique standards development organization, right? Obviously, as any SDO, it starts with the specification effort. That's where majority of the work is going, is to create robust normative specifications that actually recently now have been being pushed into ETSI. So it's a true global standard, right? Which is a great milestone for ORAN. The middle box is what makes really, I would say the middle and the OSC are really what makes ORAN unique, right? There's actually a concerted effort to focus on testing, integration, and certification within the SDO itself. So that is the group that I chair in ORAN. We support members in testing, integration, certification, plugfest, etc. I'm going to talk a little bit about the different activities we do to support testing, integration. And finally, the ORAN software community, right, which is, I think, most relevant for OAI, right, is to collaborate. You know, it's a collaboration between, you know, ORAN and the Linux Foundation, and it's really the vision of a fully open source RAN stack. So a lot of the work in OSC is primarily on the RIC and SMO, using SMO, but I think the partnership between ORAN and OAI is really significant because now we can have a truly open source, you know, end-to-end stack. Okay. So the group that I chair, test integration, you know, what do we do, right? There's really three main areas. First of all, of course, it's about testing, and it's more about test specifications, right? Testing task group. So we coordinate all the specs around the different work groups. There's 11 work groups now in ORAN. They're in charge of their own test specifications. We want to make sure that all of those are coordinated. So that's actually what I do kind of on a daily basis. You know, TIFG, the group I chair, also owns an end-to-end test specification, wherein we talk about how a combination of RU, CU, can actually get an end-to-end system badge, for example, you know, functional performance, etc. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. The middle is about certification, right? Like if you're a vendor with a piece of equipment, how do I show to the market that I am compliant? And so ORAN has this certification and badging process, allowing labs. You know, ORAN labs are called OTICs, Open Test Integration Centers, which is the other box here. Again, allowing vendors to come in and get an official stamp of approval from ORAN saying, I am compliant to the various specs in ORAN. Finally, the last group is OTICs and plugfest. Is again these open labs that are coordinated by ORAN. There's close to 20 now. And also the plugfest, I'm going to talk about as well in the later slides. So, so what is certification and badging? I want to start there. And it really, it it provides a mechanism again ORAN is about enabling the smaller ecosystem players to participate in the RAN marketplace, right? So it's really important for these smaller vendors to show that they are compliant. So as of today, the program has kind of 3 types of, call it like certificates and badges, right? First of all, it's the first one is an ORAN certificate, right? It shows that I am certified to be compliant with the normative specs of ORAN, right? So, for example, Open Front Haul, there's a certificate available for that for both the RU and the DU today. The other 2 are more what are called badges, right? And this is for IoT or interoperability test badge. That is to see whether a pair of products, can interoperate with each other. Think about RU and DU over Open Front Haul, 2 base stations over X2, F1, XN. So these are all, it shows that the pair of vendors can actually interoperate with each other. And finally, the end-to-end badge shows that a cohort of RU, CU, DU can actually work to function as a true base station, right? And there's obviously for the functionality is the most basic, but there's also performance, load and stress, etc. And all of these are certificates and badges can be awarded by the OTICs themselves. Like Hongwei's lab is an OTIC, Tomaso's lab also an OTIC. So there's a lot of opportunities here to really as long as you're not a proprietary vendor, you can apply to be an OTIC in ORAN. Just a bit about, this talk is about the latest progress, so I'm going to show you, it's quite an eye chart, but it basically shows you kind of where ORAN is today in terms of the maturity of its test specs and the availability of certificates and badges, right? So on the left there is the different work groups. You can see all the different work groups from 1 to 11 and the TIFG, which is kind of on the test group. There's really, think about it, there's 4 types of test specs in ORAN, right? There's conformance testing, which is about getting certificates, interoperability, use case testing, which is kind of a new thing, right? Like how can I badge for a use case is still an open question in ORAN. And finally, end-to-end test. And you can see here, the green boxes shows you the specs that are actually available for certification and badging, which is primarily Open Front Haul, which is the most mature. The Working Group 5 is focused on profiling 3GPP interfaces, right? If you look at X2, F1, XN, these are actually not ORAN interfaces, but 3GPP interfaces. And ORAN puts profiles on top of them to ensure interoperability. And finally, end-to-end test. So apart from these 4, there's a lot of different specs in the different groups, for example, related to A1 and R1 for the non-RT RIC, E2 for near real-time RIC, OCloud, security. These are all specs that are being investigated to also award certificates and badges, but it's still kind of moving through that process. So this is kind of where we are today. I would expect in the next, ORAN works in things called trains. There's 3 trains a year, so basically every 4 months you expect new specifications. So the next train is November. So we fully expect to at least push the A1, which is the non-RT RIC interface towards the certification and badging as well. So that's something that we are working towards. So far, there are 24 certificates and badges awarded. It's quite an eye chart, but it kind of just shows you, at a high level, where we are today. You see a lot of the focus, a lot of the folks that have gone through certification badging are smaller vendors, but there are actually some tier 2 vendors here. You see NEC, you see Rakuten, Symphony, etc., Capgemini. So they go through the process to, again, show the operators that they are compliant, or they are interoperable, or they can do an end-to-end, a full end-to-end system. So a lot of the OTICs that are most active to issue these badges are in the Asia-Pacific region. Europe, the OTIC in Berlin, ran by the I-14Y, is the first one that came out of Europe. So anyway, this is an area that, obviously 24 is not a number that we brag about, right? This is just to show you where we are, and wanting the ecosystem to flourish, this number really has to grow. And obviously the true test here is whether operators start deploying some of these vendors' products. Okay. Again, I talked a little bit about what's in development. So these are all in development. I think most, we're fairly certain A1 is getting there. OCloud is a big part, right? So there's some work there. Security, obviously critical. And then finally, the use case badging is something that the group is working on. So that just gives you an idea of what's going to be coming next. So a little bit about OTICs. I talked a little bit about that. These are the groups qualified by ORAN. These are open labs that are, in fact, a number of them are operators, especially in Europe. A lot of them are actually academic labs, especially in the US. And interestingly, in Asia, it's a mix of some academic, some operator-ran labs. And it's really, again, open labs that allows for, apart from just doing PlugFest, for example, they're also officially allowed by ORAN to issue certificates and badges on behalf of ORAN. Okay? So there's 19 so far. It's fairly, evenly distributed. Again, as I mentioned, mostly the operators in Europe, a lot of academic research lab. A lot of the power labs are actually OTICs in North America and in Asia Pacific, Japan. They're kind of mostly funded a lot by governments as well. Right, so gives you a snapshot and something to think about for maybe Eurocom, potentially. Okay, so I talked a little bit about PlugFest towards the end. So these are actually global events. It happens every fall and spring. So the fall one is actually happening right now. There is funding from the ORAN Alliance. I think Eurocom was a PlugFest sponsor. I don't know if this year you probably are as well, or you are, right? So there, it allows, again, vendors to come in, as the name implies, do some ORAN interoperability tests, end-to-end tests, some certifications also. This is funded by the ORAN to really foster the community of vendors and OTICs to come together. So the spring one, just concluded. There were 10 venues, 18 labs, 78 companies. So it's been growing year to year. That's really the takeaway here. The one in the fall is happening right now. So if you're thinking about participating, make sure that you sign up to the hosts. I mean, it's not too late to participate. Okay. I mean, from a VIAVI standpoint, we've been supporting PlugFest since 2019, and over 100 demos across 16 labs. I mean, obviously Eurocom as one of them. It kind of goes to show that really there is obviously a lot of interest. We've started kind of doing these PlugFest themes. So there's kind of several themes that are in play for the PlugFests, and we're also open to new themes, right? So. For example, a theme that's probably very relevant for OAI and Eurocom is the DevOps theme, right? Like, how do we make sure that ORAN can, CI/CD, CT can actually be realized? Okay. And I promised just one slide about VIAVI, who paid for me to come here. So we are a trusted partner in ORAN tests, and that's why we've been supporting a lot of these efforts. End-to-end solution from the lab to the field to operator assurance. I actually wrote a book on ORAN. So go out to Amazon and buy it. That would be great. And it's actually written by several members, kind of co-chairs of different groups in the ORAN Alliance. So it's a handy book. And finally, just another plug is Valor. Valor stands for VIAVI Automated Lab as Service for Open RAN. I happen to be the tech lead for this project as well. So we did win that NTIA grant for labs. So we're one of the three winners. The other two are operators, AT&T, Verizon. The other one is Dish. The third one is actually VIAVI. So we're an open lab in the US, based in Chandler. And it's really about, again, democratizing O-RAN tests, right? We want to make sure smaller vendors have access to testing needs. And we actually have a fully automated lab as a service. So it's a pay-as-you-go service, funded, again, by NTIA, so highly subsidized. But if you're an academic institution, it's actually free to use, subject to availability. So any unused capacity we're offering to academic research for use. So anyway, so that's something that is available to the community. It's opening early next month. That's our grand opening. So looking forward to this community to also utilize, I think, for OAI, for example, having a U.S. presence. I think Valor would be a good opportunity if you kind of want to set up a lab there. We'll be open and welcome. So, anyway, with that, I'll stop here. So I'm sure people are hungry.
Thank you, Jan, for the presentation.